friend that lived on the farm, and we were in grade school, pretty young. She knew that I understood Arabic, because that's what Mom and Dad, they talked Arabic most of the time, at home, not out. Dad learned English. We all did. They all did. But, yeah, well, let me see. I don't want to lose that. Anyway, Mitch played on the basketball team, so we went to all the basketball games. It was where they had a lower area where they played basketball, and then upstairs a ways is where we sat and watched the game. Everybody went, Mom and Dad, all of us. That's what's nice about a little town. Our neighbor, Mrs. Zimmerman, the Zimmermans, he was a blacksmith. He had his own shop there in the town, and fixed everything for everybody that needed, things fixed and all. And they were a very nice family. He went to Oklahoma City once. One of the boys did, and it was about Virginia's age. And he went to visit them in Oklahoma City once. She told me about it. That's when she could still remember. Let's see, what else went? Louise graduated from high school in Byron, and Dad wanted her to go to college, and he sent her to a college in Chickasha, Oklahoma. She wasn't there 2 days, and she came back home. She got homesick. She didn't want to be there.
How far was that?
It's near Oklahoma City.
Okay.
He tried.
She didn't?
No. So she was going to go in Alva, Oklahoma, which was closer.
Yeah.
And she did for a while. She did go to school there for a while, and she worked for a Lebanese family that had a business there. So she stayed there with them and worked for them for quite a while. And let's see, my mother always wanted to come back to Wichita to live, because this is where most of her family was, and she didn't like not having more Lebanese people around to visit with. And the people there were very nice, though. They played cards. Mom did not like to play cards, but she did some. And Dad loved to play cards. To his dying day, he'd play solitaire, come home from the store and get the cards. And he played with the children. They'd set up games and he'd play with them.
Remember the games that they would play?
Yeah, yeah, it was just ordinary. I was trying to think of the Arabic name for it. I can't think. Anyway, they loved to be with the children. Well, I gotta get to where we can decide it. Oh, I know what it was. The Depression. Let's see, Louise had graduated. I was in about the 7th grade by then. Virginia was younger. Mitch graduated from Byron. George and Mitch both did. Louise, George, and Mitch all graduated from Byron. Fred, we moved to a small town in Oklahoma, and Dad opened a business there, grocery business, and he was doing okay, but not really what Mother wanted. So, and Mitch got a job delivering mail out in the country. They had a vehicle for him, and he'd deliver the mail to the farmers. He liked it. Made money. But we were there about 2 years. 1.5 or 2 years, something like that. And Dad decided, well, we might as well go to Wichita. When we were in Byron, one of our mom's friends owned a house in Wichita. And she wanted to go back to Byron to live. And Mother said, well, I want to go to Wichita to live. So they traded houses. No money put up or nothing. Mom and Dad, they got the house in Wichita, and she got the house in Byron. It was an okay house. Had a nice cellar for when there were storms, which we had quite often. And then we moved, Mom and Dad and the boys, yeah, they were still home. We moved to Wichita. We came to this house, and we had always had an outdoor toilet in Byron, but not in the next house we lived in. It had a bathroom. And we came, this house had a nice bathroom, big enough house. And it was wonderful to, I don't think anyone could ever do that again, exchange houses like that.
Did they do that back then at all, or was that just a rare situation?
It was rare.
Was it? That's neat.
Yeah, because she wanted to be here in Byron. That's where we heard later that she had the house picked up from in town and moved to a farmhouse. And she lived in it. So anyway, when we came to Wichita, the boys wanted to get jobs, which they did. George worked in a grocery store, and Fred worked in a drugstore, making drinks and things so that they'd make ice cream and stuff. And Mitch, I don't remember where, he worked in a grocery store too, because there were quite a few Lebanese people here, and they got jobs right away with them in their grocery stores. Then,
How old were you when you moved to Wichita?
I started East High in Wichita. I had never been to a big school like that, but we lived 1 block away from one of our relatives. Well, we weren't close relatives, but they were Lebanese. And Lucille Abel was her name. That was my age. She took me to the East High and helped me enroll and got me set up for going there. And Virginia started middle school, the next one below the high school. I don't know who helped. One of our neighbors, I think, they went with her. So, and it was, I was kind of scared and worried at first. The first class I went to was a room full of people like me from another town. Some of them, it was just smaller towns, boys and girls. And they set up a room like that for new kids that had never been to Wichita high schools. And it was great. They were all very friendly, and, it's just like finding someone you know. It was, I can't believe they did something like that. It was really nice. And that was at East High. And I went through East High School. Now, then, let's see, I told you about the bankruptcy, where they closed all the stores. No, I didn't.
No.
I skipped that yet. This happened while we were still in Byron.
Okay.
And Dad, they put the government, everything. It was when everybody lost everything. They closed the banks. They closed the stores. There was no money anywhere. It was kind of like a nightmare. That's when we went to the other town, second town.
How old were you when that happened? Do you remember?
That's when I was
You were in the
second grade.
Okay.
No more than that. Before high school, what is grades.
Junior high, 7,
Yeah.
8 through 9.
It was before high school, because I came to Wichita
Okay.
for high school. In between leaving Byron and going to that one town for 2 years. And it was but it was a nice school.
Yeah.
Most of the kids rode their bikes to school, but I didn't have a bike. I never did have a bike. The boys did, but I didn't. Well, the girls didn't. None of the girls.
None of the girls did.
Yeah.
How did you get to school?
Walk. Sometimes I'd have someone to walk with. Sometimes I was late or something. I didn't. They were mostly friendly. There were a lot of Indians living in that town that we went into. There's still a lot of Indians in some of the areas around there. They lived there. So, oh gosh. Anyway, I liked East High fine because they were, they were friendly. And I graduated from East High. What's that?
Just this camera beeping at me here.
You need more light in here?
No, I think this will work just fine.
Oh.
Okay. Well, I remember you talking about your family coming to the country in Ellis Island.
Yes. My dad, E.I.D. Elcory, Ed Elcory, that was my dad. And his brother, Sam, who was I think they were close to the same age. And they were pretty young men. The two of them came together from Beirut, from the old country. And when they got here, there were already quite a few Lebanese people here in Wichita. So that's where they were coming, to be here. So they came to Wichita. And Dad worked for, he and another relative started the F&E Wholesale Company here in Wichita. And they weren't getting along too well, didn't agree on things. So they sold the company to the Farhall brothers. And Dad and Mother got married. He met my mother. Mother, and I better go back and tell you, Mom and her sister Rose and their mother came, just the three of them, came on the boat from Beirut. And Mother and Aunt Rose, his dad, he was another Farhall, but it was their dad. There was a lot of Farhalls. Came also on that boat. And Mom had trouble with one of her eyes, and they weren't going to let Mother come with Mom, with the mother and Sister Rose. They didn't want to let her come to the United States.
How old was she?
Very young. I don't know the exact age.
But a child?
But a child, probably 6 or 7. Mom was a little older than Rose, but not much. But they finally agreed to let her come. So my grandmother and Rose and the three of them came to Wichita, where Grandpa was, their dad, Rose and Mother's dad, and Grandma's husband.
So Wichita was the first place that they lived?
Yeah. And my grandmother had an uncle here, N.F. Farha, who was a very wealthy man in Wichita. And he was responsible a little bit for getting them here, because he wanted his wife and the two girls to be here with him in Wichita. But he eventually had about 12 kids. But he was wealthy enough to afford them. He lived on Douglas. You know where Douglas is downtown?
Yes.
He had a home, their home was upstairs, up a long stairway, and a big house in that area for them to live in. There was a porch area in the back which he made for the children. It was kind of like being out camping or something. Anyway, that's where they lived until Mom got married. I better not skip so far. I'll get mixed up. Anyway, Aunt Farham wanted Grandma here to help his wife with the children because they were having lots of children. He eventually had about 11 or 12 kids, but he could afford it. And Mom met Dad. I don't know how they met, but well, they were Lebanese, and you know, they met each other in town. And they got married. Mom and Dad got married here in Wichita. And he had given up the business that he didn't like his partner, and they sold the business. The one I was trying to think of his name. He was a Farhall. Dad was an Elcory. His brother was Elcory. Anyway, he met my mother, and they liked each other, and so they got married here in Wichita. And he went from here. Oh, I'm skipping some stuff. After he left the business with his partner, he got a horse and buggy and peddled in Oklahoma. You know, they go from farm to farm.
Yeah.
And the people there, they liked Dad. And they always invited him in to spend the night. And they bought the goods from him that he was selling. Bought some of them.
You know what kind of things he would sell?
Well, not really.
Just whatever they would need on
stuff
it.
that people on the farm would need it or could use. But every place Dad ever lived, they always liked him.
Yeah?
Yeah, he was a congenial, honest man. So then they had the Oklahoma Run, where they set up places, in areas where you made the run and stayed there, and it was going to be your property. Probably, I think around 160 acres of land they could take. Well, Dad did not make the run, but another man did and decided he didn't want it, what he had claimed. So he sold it to Dad. Dad bought his claim from him. And that's how he got his farm in Oklahoma, 160 acres. He lived on that. You had to live on it a certain length of time to claim it, complete the claim. And he lived there in a dugout and to complete his claim for the land. And he did it, and he got it. It was his. He wanted to, I don't know what took him from there after he was married.
He was married in Oklahoma? Or in Wichita?
No, in Wichita.
Oklahoma.
He and Mother had gotten married here in Wichita. So he wanted to go, he knew these people near Byron, in Byron, when he was peddling. He had met most of them, and he liked it there. I don't know if he built his building or it was already built. It was a brick building, and he put groceries and dry goods in the building. That's what he was selling in the store, and fruit and vegetables and everything you'd find in a little country store. And he opened that business, and he did very well in it. There was one other store in the same town. It was so little, that's all we could handle. There was a post office, a drugstore, and the two business stores. And I think that was about it in that town. And he bought a house. It was a nice house. And that's where we lived, in Byron. Louise is the oldest child. And then George, the second oldest, and he's the one that helped Dad in the store. Then Mitchell and Fred, then me, then Virginia. There were 6 kids in the family. Virginia was the youngest, and I was next to the youngest. There was a school in Byron, and the farmers were the children were bused they picked up at their farm home and bused into Byron to go to school. We had through high school there, grade school to through high school.
How big was the school?
It was big enough they had 2 stories, they had a basketball team in the school. It was pretty nice size. Of course, they brought in all the farm kids and the kids that already lived there in town. Are you bored?
No.
Anyway.
What was school like?
It was nice. They had the rooms for each grades, and each one of the grades, and they had teachers. Mitch played on the basketball team, and we all would go to the basketball game. And they had a thing about each school all around the area, other towns would have a play they would put on. And every school would travel from one school to the next, not at the same time, but,
Yeah.
we'd have a high school come to our town and Dad'd buy tickets and we'd go to the play, which was really fun, nice. And that's what the other towns did. All the little towns around there would go.
What did you like about school the most? What did you have?
I had a close. And then is when the Depression hit.
After you graduated?
The war started. What'd you say?
How old were you during the Depression?
When the Depression hit?
Yeah.
I was graduating from high school.
Okay.
And anyway.
So they closed all the banks?
What?
So the banks were closed and stores were closed?
Well, that was, when we were still in Byron, that's when they closed the banks. And if you didn't have any cash, you were in trouble.
Wow.
But my brothers did have work. And Dad worked for a while, but he was getting pretty old by then, But he still owned the farm. That was a lifesaver for us.
Yeah?
Because he had someone planted the wheat, and Dad would go down there when it was time for harvest and sell the wheat, and bring home the money, which was a lifesaver for us. He owned the farm forever, as long as he lived, he owned the farm. And then when George got married, my brother, he married a girl from Oklahoma City, a Lebanese girl. This happened later. Well, I better go back to the war, because that was before then. George was the first one called in. And then the next one was, and he went to some kind of, at that time, they wouldn't even let you know where they couldn't let us know where they were, what they're doing, nothing. And then Mitch was the second one called in to go to war. And they sent him to Panama. I don't think we found it out right away, but later when they could release where they were, we found out he was in Panama. And and Fred went to England. Fred had the best time. Anyway, and then George had the hardest time, the three of them on the island. However, where Mitch was in Panama, the weather, was too hot, and he got, what did you get? Malaria.
Malaria from mosquito.
Yeah, he got malaria while he was there, real sick. He didn't let us know until later, after he got over it, that he had it. We didn't know but he was also the one that handed out the paychecks. Mitch and George both worked in the office at wherever they were, and they paid made the paychecks for him. So they had it was a good place to be. They weren't out shooting people or it was a terrible war, terrible. And we lost only one Lebanese boy in the war, that war. He was driving a truck wherever he was. He was driving and ran over a landmine, and it killed him. And that was, have you heard me talk about Katie and some of my friends here in Wichita?
No.
Well, it was her brother that got killed. So, but that was the only boy from Wichita that did get killed, and they all went, almost all of them.
So was it kind of strange having no boys around for?
Well, yeah.
That would be.
And that's why they were hiring a lot of the girls, the women. I went to work first, at the Wichita Beacon, and they put me upstairs taking calls to put in the paper. And I went in, I did work there for about a week or so, and then I went into my boss and I said, I've got to quit. And he said, why? I said, if I was going to put an ad in the paper, I'd put it in the Wichita Eagle. I just can't work here. That was stupid of me. I know it was. Now
you didn't like it.
No, he had me, the main office was downstairs on the main floor.
Yeah.
He sent me downstairs on the main floor and told them to put me to work. Doing something there. And I did, and I worked there till after I started got married and had some kids. So
that was better down there?
Well, I didn't have to try to sell them the paper, to be a customer or anything like that. It was like I did believe, no, the Eagle was a bigger newspaper and more popular, better. Oh, it's only 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
Bob set it up for me. They had it at their house for a while. I don't know why he took it home. I guess he didn't think I wanted it, and Mary didn't want it. So he brought it back. I like it. I always wanted it. Yes. It was Louise's.
Oh, yeah? Mm-hmm. It's pretty sound.
Yeah. Well, I like knowing what time it is.
Yeah.
In the middle of the night, maybe.
Doesn't wake you up?
Nah. If I'm asleep, I sleep pretty sound. Okay, where was I?
You worked at the Beacon.
Oh yeah, so I worked there until I got married, and I still worked there until I had kids. I had Brooke first. I still worked at the Beacon. I liked my job very much. Anyway.
What was it like day to day in the Depression? What was that?
Well, we were young enough, Regina and I were young enough, it didn't bother us at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. because Dad had the store, and we always had plenty of food, and lived, you know, as well as anybody in there, you know. We went to all the programs, and everybody Dad had a lot of good farmer customers too. They liked him. He was easy to get along with. The banks even closed when the Depression, when they closed everything up. They even locked the doors on the banks. I don't know whether if you had any money in there or what happened. Because I'm sure Dad did have some. It was just strange. I would go home. I went home with my friend that lived on the farm. It was so different. They put food on the table, and the plates were huge. I couldn't eat much of it. It was good. They had good food and everything. But I wasn't used to farmers' food.
How did that? What kind of food did you eat growing up?
What?
What did you eat growing up? What kind of food?
Oh, a lot of Lebanese food. Mom cooked Lebanese food, a lot, most of the time, for our family. I liked it. It's good.
The stuff that you cook?
Yeah.
Like
Squash, grape leaves. Of course, sometimes Dad would, when we were in Byron yet, he'd butcher a small animal, you know, they butchered for meat for the house. Sometimes he would have that done. And when Mother wanted to cook fried chicken, she'd call the store where Mitch would probably be there, and tell him she wanted a chicken killed. Mom wouldn't kill him. So Mitch would go there and he'd take the chicken and hold it up like that. Whatever Dad says, I'm saying. And kill the chicken. Dad would say something in Arabic, you know, bless the chicken or something.
Yeah. So they had, at the store, they had live chickens?
No.
Okay, that was at the farm. Okay.
No, it was at our house. We had some chickens.
Oh, you did?
We had chickens and eggs.
Who took care of that?
The boys, Mitch or Fred, George, one of, whoever was there.
Did you have chores as a child?
No. Not in Byron. Virginia and I weren't old enough to do the chores. The boys did them. So I had some very close friends. The one that lived on the farm was a very close friend. They lived in a nice house on the farm. And when she was younger, a little bit younger, she climbed up on the table and knocked over the lamp. Well, they didn't have electricity. They had lamps, with the light, with
kerosene.
And knocked it over, and it burned the house down. She got burned some, I think, but
wow.
They didn't say much. That was before we were old enough to be going to school, I think. I don't know. It's hard to remember exact timing.
Yeah.
So, it was quite an experience, and us getting that house in Wichita, traded for the one in Byron, was really something. I don't know what happened with Dad's store. It was a brick building, very nice building. Well, we had some gypsies show up in town one time, and Virginia and I happened to be at the store. And Dad had us get under the counter, and they had little peek holes under there where we could see out what was going on. And he took the broom and chased them out of the store, just with the broom.
Was that a very common thing?
For them to come to town.
Yeah.
They didn't come very often, no. It wasn't very common, because that's the only time I remember them being in town.
And he was worried they might take things, or...
Oh, they did.
Yeah.
They were well known for stealing.
Chase them out with a broom, huh?
Yeah. We had a movie theater. Mitch ran it for the owner. The owner lived in another town nearby, and where his projection was upstairs, and he'd run the theater, but it was silent film. No voice, no sound. And they'd play music, piano. Somebody was playing the piano or some kind of music while the film was being shown.
Was that pretty fun to go see?
Well, it was the only thing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as, I wouldn't want to sit through one now.
But then it was fun.
Yeah, then it was the only thing we had. And Mitch was the one that was running the film for him.
Wow.
We didn't have to pay to go in. Virginia and I did. Of course, we were both pretty young. She fell asleep one time when we were in there, and I carried her back into the store. The store was right next door.
Oh, was it?
Uh-huh.
That's nice. Did you have a favorite movie when you were a kid?
Nah. Wouldn't have known what to pick anyway. And then when we came to Wichita, I didn't even go to films much then either. So it wasn't until after the war things got pretty much back to normal. And thank God none of my brothers were hurt, except Mitch getting that
Malaria.
malaria, yeah. He was the first one to die. And then George. And Fred. Fred died. All three of my brothers died. Not right away, but anyway.
How did you meet Papa?
Oh, Harry?
Yeah.
When Mitch came home on furlough the first time, yeah, I think it was his first time home from Panama, he wanted to go out, and he and Harry went out to some dance place or someplace, met a couple of girls and stuff. And then later, Harry said, well, would you think one of your sisters would go with me? And Mitch said, well, I'll ask her. I think he had his eyes on, at first, Virginia. She always was the cuter one, I think. Anyway, well, she was little. She was always real thin. And Harry decided that he wanted to have me go. And I did. And then we dated 2 or 3 times, and it didn't take long. We got engaged and married. The boys weren't home yet when Harry and I got married. Mitch had to go back to Panama. He was just given a furlough, for a short time, not very long, and then he had to go back.
So why was Papa able to be home, Harry?
My dad?
No, Harry. Why
Oh,
was
Harry?
he in Wichita?
Oh, he had a bad knee or something. He was in the service until it was near the end of the service. It was almost over anyway. And they sent him home because of his knee or leg or something.
Do you know what he did in the service, where he was? Or?
No, yeah, I think it was always bad. I'm not real sure. It was so near the end of the war that some of them were coming home by then anyway.
Yeah. Where do you know where he was during the war?
He never did go overseas.
Okay. What was your wedding like?
What?
What was your wedding like?
Who was?
What was your wedding like?
Oh,
You got married?
we got married at home, in our mom and dad's house. Because none of my brothers were home. We got married. Mitch had already left, and the others hadn't come home yet. But Harry wanted to go ahead and get married. So we did on Valentine's Day. I did pick the day. I said, well, then maybe you won't forget.
That's nice of you.
Yeah. And I was working. I worked at the Beacon until I had Brock. I got pregnant with Brock. So I worked there quite a while. It was a good job.
Do you remember where it was? Where the Beacon was? Was it
Downtown on Main Street. Do you remember the stores around Wichita downtown?
Yeah.
Remember where the Beacon building was?
Is that?
It was right downtown on Main Street, on the corner.
Are the railroad tracks or?
No.
Trying to picture.
It was on, the Eagle was just a block, what direction is that? Block away from the Beacon.
Okay.
Yeah. And there was a drugstore between the Beacon and the Eagle, a drugstore. What was the name of that drugstore? I don't know. I'd sent the copy boy down to the drugstore. When I did get pregnant, I was starting to get upset stomach, didn't feel good. I'd send him to the drugstore and get me something to drink.
Yeah.
At one time,
So you worked for a little bit while you were pregnant, huh?
yeah, oh yeah. I did. I had a wonderful, J. Crittenden, that was my boss. He was a nice guy. He wasn't one of the owners, he was just my boss in the office, main office. There was a young man that worked in the main office too. And the rest of us were cashiers or, I started by working on the newspapers, sending out, and I did that for quite a while. It was nice. I liked it. The people were nice.
Kind of going back a little bit, you're not real sure about when your birthday is, are you?
One day, I'm not sure which day. I'd ask Mom, when's my birthday? End of August. And I didn't know for sure later whether it was the 30th or the 31st. But it's the end of August.
End of August. They didn't have birth certificates back then, or?
Oh yeah, Mom and Dad both had birth certificates.
Didn't say it on there? Or?
No, well, that wasn't when, they wouldn't have put mine on theirs, I don't think.
Did you have one?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so. If I do, I don't know where it is. I might have one. Yeah. I don't know how long Dad had to live on the farm. He kept that farm until forever in his lifetime. And of course it went to, we girls wouldn't have it, but Mitch and Fred and George, but George eventually got it. And and when George died, his wife sold that farm. Made me feel real sad. Because Dad wouldn't have wanted to. He would have given it to one of the boys to keep. Mitch or Fred or George got it, but oh well. They wouldn't fuss over it. They wouldn't have created a problem. He would have, but Mitch and Fred wouldn't have. Shouldn't say that, should I?
Well, I mean, it'd be difficult to
figure out.
well, to watch or to watch
yeah,
the man get sold.
Because Dad put it sure helped the family get through the times that were. Dad go every summer, bring home the money for sell the crop, and the farmer that lived there would take care of everything. And of course he got part of the money, I think. I'm sure he did. He got paid by being able to live on the farm. Come to think about it, I'm not sure there was ever a house there. You know, I always think, well, why didn't I ask someone before, while they were still here? All these questions I don't know. So if you want to know anything, you better be sure and ask somebody. It was a good life. Good parents. And the people, really, the Lebanese people all got along very well. And they all got a good education. Does that sound boring?
No. Who taught you how to cook?
My mother. I did take a cooking class at East High, though.
Was that quite a bit different than what you were doing at home?
Not different. Well, the recipes were Lebanese. The ones at home were Lebanese recipes. And the ones at the school would be recipes that if I went out to eat or, everybody else was eating.
Do you think that the food your mom prepared was different than what she had learned because of where you guys were living and what you had to use to cook?
No, well.
The ingredients might have been, or was it pretty similar?
Well, the recipes were different. Like we made great leaves and squash, and Mom and Dad always had a garden in the yard, and in the summer, and I loved to go out and pick the green peas and eat them. Oh, they were good. But the recipes were different because now you go to any restaurant in town practically and you can get some Lebanese food.
Yes, you can.
And that's the same way with other people. They have their kind of food out there too. Everybody has.
But are grape leaves something that your mom's mom cooked in?
That is something from the old country.
Okay.
Yeah. That's good. Is that boring?
No. You doing all right? Are you getting?
Oh,
Want to go for a little break or?
well, I don't know. You want something to eat? You want some? What did I have in there? I said we could eat later. Okay. Candy or ice cream? I've got ice cream.
Sure. Let's have a
Okay.
little.
Yeah, he bought our first house we lived in. We lived in his mother's house, with his mother until, when the war was over, Harry had 4 brothers that were, well, 3 of them that were overseas. And when they all came home, you couldn't hardly find a place in Wichita to live. Because they were
Really?
all the guys were coming home and wanting to buy houses and find a place to live. So that house was cramped full. There was an upstairs and there was a basement, which helped. Frank went down to the basement and fixed it up real nice. He's one of the particular ones. Mm. You picked out a good one.
It's good.
I always keep some ice cream in the freezer outside, just in case I run out.
I do too. It's not a good thing to run out of ice cream.
Mm-mm. Your girlfriend, does she live near you? Or?
Yeah, she lives about 2 miles away.
Oh. Same direction? Which part of town?
She lives, she lives pretty close to Belle.
Oh. Well, that's not very far from you.
No,
then.
it's not. She lives pretty close.
Does she ever mention wanting to get married?
We talk about it sometimes.
Mm. Does she own her home or does she rent?
She has an apartment.
Mm. Heck, if you can get married, you save the rent. Does she ever say anything? Does she want to have a family?
She's thinking about it.
Mm. Well,
Did you know you always wanted to have a family?
oh yeah. I sure did. Of course, if it was now, times are so different. I think I'd be more concerned
About what?
raising a family with all that's going on in the world now. Never did have the feeling like we have now about everything in life.
Even with the war and...
Well, no, because we had something we had to fight for, and we won.
Mm-hmm.
But now, you can name any country in the world, and there's a problem in every one of them, part of it. It's just not the way it was.
You think it'll get better?
Mm-hmm. It's possible. We didn't have all the wars. We had the one big war, and they had one before the big war that didn't last long. But now, the countries don't want to get along. And that's scary. In Beirut, when my dad and uncle came, they were taking teenage boys and putting them in the war, young boys. That was in Italy, I think was one of them. They're having a hard time now too, Italy. Now you get you some more if your server didn't do right. There's quite a few families that came to Wichita, got away from Syria.
Yeah.
Do you know some?
I don't think I do.
We have some of them that come to our church. Part of the people from Lebanon were Catholic. Go get some more. You didn't put enough.
I just eat fast.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I think you put more in mine. Who does the cooking? Do either of you do the cooking at one of the houses?
I like to cook. She cooks too. She cooks. She's pretty healthy with her cooking,
Yeah.
and she'll try new things a lot more than I will. I've started cooking out of my Lebanese cookbook that you and Gretchen made.
Oh, uh-huh.
I've cooked a few dishes. I'm comfortable making chicken and rice.
Oh, I haven't done that for a long time. What else?
Green beans and rice. I've made that a few times. That's pretty good.
Does she like it?
Yeah, she does.
Hmm.
Yeah. What's not to like? It's delicious.
Yeah. It is.
She liked an arroz.
Mm-hmm.
That's
With syrup bread?
yeah. Syrup bread, lovin' and zitoun.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you better hang on to her.
I have a big the big bucket of olives in my fridge.
Oh? Does she eat them?
Yeah. They're good. I got them at N&J's.
Yeah. What kind of work does she do on the job?
She works. She's a police officer. She's on the east side of town, and she works in Hilltop, that area.
Oh, Hilltop?
Yeah.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah, it can be. It keeps her busy.
At one time, Harry and I owned 2 houses there. And he just did an investment. He never did live there.
Yeah.
But Candy and Tom lived in one of them for a while until they could get someplace to live. And Bob and Mary lived in one of them for a while. Then later we sold them both. Well, that was good.
Yep.
You better get some more. I know it didn't be enough for you.
Oh, it was plenty. I think we just got married, and then you had Brock up until
Brock, and then
you worked up until then.
yeah. We went to Texas before I had Brock. I was pregnant with Brock. That's why I had to quit my job. And we went to Texas, and he sold sweepers. Harry did. It was a brand new company, and he got in on, selling them. And we stayed there until it was about time for me to have Brock. And we came back to Wichita. And then I didn't work until after the Candy was born. I had Brock, and then Jane, and then Bob, and then Candace for. And when Candace got big enough, started school, I went to work. I worked again at the Wichita, at Weight Watchers, in the office.
Yeah.
Had a good job I liked there. Had some good friends.
What was my dad like as a kid? He was a handful.
Bob?
Yeah.
He was I can say excellent things about him. I wouldn't mind taking him shopping with me. He'd hold my hand and just best behaved little boy you ever saw. And he very thoughtful, even when he was little, young, very thoughtful. But we can get into the worst fights. It made me so mad. The big problem with Bob was, no matter what age, he thought he knew more than anyone else.
Yeah.
He thought I didn't know what I was doing half the time. It was hard to get along with him sometimes. But yet he still had a heart of gold. I mean, he was so Hanoon, which is caring. Then he turned around and make me so mad. But he was a very...
Just arguing with him, even as a...
Yeah, I
even
couldn't
when he was
help
young?
it. Yeah.
He was just that type of...
Yeah, well, we wasn't that young when we were arguing.
Yeah.
Young enough. Yeah. One time I was going to spank him. I chased him all over the house. I couldn't catch him. I never did catch him. And yet he was so sweet and good in so many ways, caring ways. He was a caring person.
Yeah.
He was the only one I ever did that with. But I guess he probably kind of liked it. I don't know.
Did what with?
Well, it was getting me to run around. I never did really spank him hard. I never did. I just wanted to have the satisfaction of catching him.
What was Uncle Brock like as a kid?
Oh, more businesslike.
Even as a child?
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when he first, his hot spot he invented.
Yeah.
And it was like, no one could sell it and for a long time until what is it they call it, ran out.
Oh, the patent.
Yeah, until the patent ran out, no one else could sell them. And Harry and I don't know, I guess he wanted us there when they first tried it out, the very first time, to make sure it was all right, okay. His shop was on Douglas. Well, it was one of the boys from our church that owned the building. Anyway, we went there when they unveiled the hot spot for the first time and checked it, tested it, and we were both there to see it. It was quite thrilling.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
Of course, he still sells them, quite a few of them now.
Yeah.
Is that an airplane?
No, it's. I think somebody's mowing some leaves or something.
Oh,
out there.
in my yard? I
Uh,
think one of them.
I think your neighbor's. It's happening at your neighbor's yard
Oh.
right now.
Oh. I have someone supposed to come.
Yeah, your lawn looks nice.
Oh, maybe he already came. I don't know. He probably did. Jane always pays them for me ahead of time. So,
What was Jane like as a
Huh?
kid? What was Aunt Jane like as a kid?
very particular. Wants things done right. Wants to do things right. Mm. Candace was pretty much, I don't know, being the youngest, they can get by with a little more.
So that saying's true, huh?
Yeah.
Did everybody get along pretty well as
Oh,
when
yeah.
they were kids?
I never had the girls fight or the boys either, really. Just sometimes they'd yell. The problem was Brock always wanted to, he had what is it when you talk to other people in other cities, states, countries, all over. What do you call those speaker things?
On the radio?
No,
Speaker.
I can't think of it.
Different than a phone or a radio?
Yeah. He can
Yeah.
listen to,
Amateur radio?
huh?
Amateur radio?
No. Anyway, he could talk to somebody over across the water, in other countries, any place. Sometimes he stayed up real late at night and everybody would start hollering at him. Go to bed. Why can't I think of that? Everybody used to have one.
Like a CB radio?
It's not
A
really.
little different than that?
Yeah. Gosh, they got through in a hurry.
And my dad worked at the gas station, didn't he? How old was he during that time?
Brock was the oldest. He worked more at first.
Did he?
And then I started leaving Bob at the gas station when I had a meeting to go to or someplace to go. I'd had to take Bob there too. But Brock, being older, was the one that worked more at first. Of course, Bob was too young to go. But I did take him there when I had a meeting to go to or something I had to do. But I'd go pick him up later. It always seemed like Brock had the brunt of the deal, but he didn't seem to mind. He'd let him go. See, in the summer, we would shot. This place was close to the swimming pool on the same street there, and he'd give Brock. Harry would let Brock go swimming, and then come back to the shop and work. Joyland, that's what it was.
Oh, Joyland, okay. How did he get into the gas station?
Harry?
Yeah.
Well, the land was part of some of it was my brother's, and they decided they wanted to go out east. And I guess Harry took over the land and built a shop, a service station on it. He sold gas.
Did that go pretty well?
Yeah, it did.
Do you remember where it was?
Huh?
You remember where it was?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I could take you there, but I can't always.
Street names or?
Yeah.
How long was the gas station open?
Quite a while. Long time. Just trying to think what happened that we closed it. Harry got to the point he wasn't able to work hardly as much as he had been. He had gout real bad. His legs, they kept wanting to operate on him and he didn't want to. The night he got sick, I had stayed up to watch something on TV in the back room, and I went on to bed and fell asleep, and I woke up hearing him holler at me. And I got up and he was in the bathtub, laying in the bathtub with his head against the faucet, and I ran in the other room, got a pillow, big pillow, and put it behind his head. He said, "Okay, I'm better now, you can go to bed." I said, "I can't leave you in there like that." And finally he agreed for me to call for help. I called 911 first, and then I called all three of Jane and Mike, and Jane and Bob and Brock. And Bob was there right away, and Brock came out. I don't think Brock came. He was living in Derby then. Bob was first one, and Jane came. And I said, "What, you left the girls by themselves?" Because Mike was working at the hospital that same time at night, and at St. Joe. And she said, "Well, they're all right. So anyway, she wouldn't leave. She wanted to be there when they came, and anyway, they put Harry in the hospital right away in St. Joe. And he never did get to come back home.
Where were your children born?
Here in Wichita.
At certain hospital?
At St. Francis.
St. Francis?
All three of them. Dr. Martin Hagen was my doctor. In those days, they wouldn't let anyone in the room. Even the dad, Harry couldn't even go in the room when they were born in those days.
Why is that?
I don't know. make sure germs or something.
Yeah.
I don't really know. There was a rule, but rule didn't last very long. It got to more like it is today.
Hmm.
I think it was just Brock, the first one, and then later they didn't have that rule. You have to cook supper tonight?
I'm cooking right now, actually. I have a roast going with some potatoes and an onion.
Oh. Well, how nice.
So it should be done a little later.
And she'll come and have dinner with you?
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll be good. It's hard to mess up a roast, I hope.
Yeah, I think it is. I don't think you have to worry.
That's good.
Is that thing filming?
It does have a film, but it's mostly for sound.
Oh,
That way I couldn't write down everything you were
Yeah.
saying, so if I just
I hope I talk
I think you
clear
did.
enough.
Yeah, I think you did good.
Yeah. That was my
Yeah.
mother's chest of thing.
I hope I didn't wear you out too much.
No, I
Lot
hope
of
I didn't
hard-
bore you.
No.
I know there's a lot of things that I went on that I didn't even think of, because it was just a busy time.
Yeah. Lots of good information.
Well, yeah, I'm probably forgetting a lot, but
We could do
I'll
it
think of
again.
it in the middle of the night and say, oh, gosh.
We could do it again.
Yeah. If I could see to write, I'd write it down, but I don't have center vision in both my eyes. If I look like this, I'm trying to look at your face,
Yeah.
it's blank. If I shift my eyes up, now I can see your face. I have to move my eye to center in on you. I see pretty good right there.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That would be difficult.
Well, I'm thankful I have what I do have. That I can do what I can. You know, there's lots of things I can do.
Yeah.
Does your girlfriend have any brothers or sisters?
She has 2 brothers.
Oh, the only girl. Her mom and dad probably wish she'd get married. Well, if she's the only girl,
She's the only one of her older brothers married. One of her brothers is married and one's not.
no. Does her family live here in Wichita?
Yeah.
Oh. Have you met them?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh. That's interesting. Fred brought that big picture over there on the wall from one of his. He loves to travel.
Yeah. Let's see that. Where'd you get that?
I'm not sure what country. It might have been England. It might have been some other country. I don't know for sure. It was only he traveled around the world one time. He traveled back and forth to England several times. He just loved to travel.
You traveled much?
A whole lot, yes. He did.
Have you?
No, not really. Went to Oklahoma City several times because I had a sister there.
Yeah.
But our family went to Oklahoma some other town, not where we live, but had relatives there. Went to Enid a lot because Harry's sister lived there. Do you like to travel?
A little bit. I mean, I haven't traveled a lot, but I enjoy it when I do.
Yeah.
Haven't been real far away, I guess, but
You and your girlfriend ever take a trip or?
a couple of times.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. I went to Texas with her. In Oklahoma.
What does her hobbies, does she like to do anything special?
She likes to cook. She likes
Oh.
to cook like desserts and stuff like that. She likes to exercise.
Yeah. When she works at the, where she works, what kind of work does she do? Does she have to arrest people?
Yeah.
Ooh.
She answers 911 calls. So if you called 911, she might show up at your door.
Oh.
She'll write tickets and she'll help people hopefully get along a little better if they're arguing and they need to call the police. She'll just anything a regular police officer does, she's out there doing that. Gets people for...
Has she ever had a problem with any of them?
No?
Yeah,
She does-
something that would scare her.
Oh. I'm sure a little bit, but not enough to make her want to be done.
Oh.
I'm sure
Do they have other women?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
quite a few.
I think they need more. I think
Oh.
that because when they arrest a woman, they like to have a woman police officer there.
Oh.
And they always seem to need another. You just need more, I
Yeah.
guess, for that purpose. And sometimes when the police are involved with kids, if
Yeah.
there's a child that's being abused, a lot of times it's easier for the kid to talk to a female police officer
Oh.
sometimes.
Yeah, it would be, I would think. Has she ever been scared?
I think a couple times. I mean, it could be.
That
It
would
could be
be
a little scary.
bad.
Yeah, but she says when it gets something really crazy happens, there's not a whole lot of time to be scared. You just kind of deal with it, and then you can think about it afterwards.
Is she a good shot with her gun?
Better than me.
Well, that wouldn't have. You probably don't use a gun much.
Well, I've got. Papa. Let's see. Papa bought my dad his first gun. My dad gave me that gun.
Oh.
I've got a few. I like to go shooting.
Yeah, Harry had left the gun. It was in one of the drawers at the house. And Bob just happened to be there. And I found that gun. I said, Bob, I don't want to keep this. He said, are you sure? I said, yeah, I don't want it in the house. If it was used, it'd probably be used against me.
Oh, good.
So he took it. Is that the one you're talking about?
I don't know. I don't.
Oh.
He's given me quite a few.
Mm. Well, he and Brock both of them.
Yeah. But she's a good shot. Her job to what they do.
Well, I know he took you. Even Gretchen went out to fire range and range,
And Rebecca's been out.
yeah.
Yeah. She went a few days ago to
Really?
practice. My girlfriend.
Oh,
Just
to practice.
Yeah.
Did you go with her?
no.
Oh.
She goes to a police range.
Oh. And she's pretty good at it.
Oh yeah.
That's good.
How about you?
Heck, I don't,
Have you ever, when you were younger?
no, I've never handled a gun. Never.
Never had a bike. Never had a
No.
gun.
I was left out of a lot of things, I guess.
Well, guns aren't for everybody, I guess. But
I didn't
and if you
care.
yeah,
I wasn't even
yeah,
wanted.
yeah.
So.
Well, I think we should do it again sometime.
Sure.
All right.
Maybe I can.
I'll write down
it's-
some
I
ideas.
know I haven't remembered everything, but because
There's always more to remember.
yeah. But I guess it was enough for one time.
Yeah,